Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the Black Family Business Show. I'm your host, Malcolm. Thank you for joining me here. Today, we're going to talk about some mistakes, some really critical mistakes people make when self-publishing their own book. So it is November, and since 1999, historically, November has been like National Writing Month or something like that, where there's a challenge to where on November 1st, you start and you have the goal of writing your manuscript in the 30 days of November. Now, I'm not saying to do all of that, but that inspired me to create this list for you guys, because there are a lot of people who have dreams of writing a book, who have like real aspirations of writing a book. They feel like they have a story to tell, and they write their book. They put a lot of hours, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into their book, to put it out for only, family and friends to maybe buy it, or to buy it, never read it, and then their book is collecting dust somewhere and it's never, all that hard work is really for nothing, essentially, right? And we don't want that. I don't want that for you. So I'm here to list out some really critical mistakes that you can avoid if you want to self-publish your own book. Now, I am a self-published author myself. My book, Urban Excellence, Unveiling Extraordinary Stories by Everyday People, that came out in 2020. It took me like almost 2 years, maybe a year and a half to write and complete the whole thing. And some of the mistakes that I'm going to talk about, I've made some of these mistakes myself, and I don't want to come across like I knew everything, because I didn't. But even before that, I do have a free course, if you're interested, on how to write your book, self-publish it. It's on the website blackfamilybiz.com/income. All you need is an email, and that course is in there along with course on podcasting, on YouTube, and things like that. So it's like 5 different courses in there, all for free. All you have to do is go to the website, put your email in, and you have access to it. So before, let's get started. So the first thing that I want to say is self-publishing is already at a disadvantage if you decide to self-publish a book, right? But it's because the idea of self-publishing your own book is automatically looked at as low quality, because people think, book deals, they think, publishing houses and things like that, getting your book into bookstores, and it's get a book agent, and there is a traditional way to go about it. Now, self-publishing, if you take the correct steps, along that process, can be just as valuable, your book could have just as much quality as somebody who traditionally published their book, sometimes even more, because you have more of a creative say a lot of the times in your book. You're not beholden to a publishing house who is writing the check for these things to happen. You have more of a say, and that's a different conversation for another day when it comes to the pros and cons to traditional to self-publishing. But the reason why I created this list is because if you make these mistakes, then you could be looked at as your book or your project could be looked at as low quality. So I want to avoid that by creating this list. So first things first, inadequate editing. Okay, so a lot of people, when they write their book, they skimp on the editing part, because they think, I got, spell check, or I use Grammarly, or I use some other tool to help me with my grammar and stuff like that. Editing is more than just a spell check. It's more than just grammar. It is the entire structure and feel of the book, the tone. I would liken a book editor to a music engineer, right? So you have the artist who is doing the music and things like that, but the engineer puts it together and makes it into a cohesive project. Like, if the album, it makes it into a cohesive album. So an editor, that's what the editor's job is. Now, there are different types of edits. There's a copy edit. So that's the line by line, like what you initially think of when you think of a book editor. That goes through the spelling, that goes through the grammar and things like that. Make sure you're not talking in a passive, past tense. If the story doesn't call for that, or something to that effect. There's a structural edit. That's what I'm describing, where you know, if the book doesn't, if this chapter doesn't really flow right, you can take out this entire paragraph because it gets redundant here or things like that. So there are different types of edits, and a lot of self-publishers or a lot of self-published authors skip out on this part completely, and it is important. Okay, so it is one of the reasons why, like, my book came out the way it did. So in my book, I interviewed 11 people from 11 different walks of life and crafted their stories into an overarching narrative that is urban excellence. So within that book, within it, you can see there are stories, multiple stories being told within each chapter, within each person that I interviewed. And you know what I thought when I was writing the book, you know, you kind of try to you self-edit. So I was doing that, but when I submitted to the editor, like chapter by chapter, she was helping me kind of flesh out the ideas and flesh it out to where each chapter seemed very cohesive. So you don't want to skip out on on getting a good editor. Okay, so, and this is again another thing that, you know, leads to people looking at the quality of the book. If you don't take pride in it being a readable book, then why should I even finish this book? You get what I'm saying? So don't skip out on really investing in a good editor, somebody you trust, somebody that you have great communication with, that you can work with, that, you know, it's a real give and take process. It's not just a, here's my book, you know, do something with it. There's a give and take process. They have the input, you have yours, and you come together to make a solid project. Okay. Next thing, and this is one that a lot of people might not agree with me on, but just poor cover design. Now, I'm of the belief that the simpler, the better. Okay, a lot of people like to throw a lot of stuff on their book covers because they believe that you know, sometimes the book has deeper meaning and stuff like this, and, you know, the cover should speak to the deeper meaning and the double and triple entendres, and I think you should not do that. And the reason is because I want you to put yourself in a position, if you, as you being the consumer, if you pick up a book and you have no idea, whatever the title says, you have no idea what's going on in this cover, you're likely to put it back down if it's too much happening. And then what I did was, when I was like, my stepmother created the cover for my book because she has a background in graphic design. I didn't just, you know, skimp out on that. But if she has a background in background design, but what I was doing was, I just kind of looked at the books I read, right? And I'm looking at my bookshelf, and then sometimes the books that I like are very, very simple. Like, so Ryan Holiday's Ego is the Enemy is one of my favorite books. It's a blue cover with the statue on the front, the title, and that's it. And then the little image has a meaning that goes to the book. So you can be creative in that way, but don't do too much with it, okay? Don't do too much. I think the simpler the better. Because, you know, like, less is more, like, you know, that phrase. And judging a book by its cover is very common. We all do it, but you don't want to do too much on the cover, okay? And a real cheesy design sometimes can, again, make it look less appealing, make it look less quality. So you also want to invest in somebody who knows how to work with book covers as well. You don't want to just hire your friend who can draw or something like that to create your book cover. You want to really put in time and effort when it comes to creating your book cover, because it is important. It's like, you know, it's the first thing people see along with the cover when they pick up the book. You know what I mean? You want to be able to see an image that speaks to you, speaks to your book, speaks to the topic, but not, it doesn't want to be too, you don't want it to be too much. Okay? So this one is one of the more serious mistakes people make when writing their book, is they don't write with a reader in mind. Now, this is many, many different ways that you can do this, right? So if you read a book that was written by an educator, written by a professor, college professor, sometimes it feels like they're writing to other college professors. And that's because most of the time they are. They're not writing for the average person to read it. They're writing to kind of impress their peers. So you want to make sure you're writing to your target audience, who you want to read this book, okay? Second, and this is going to be maybe a little controversial, but nobody cares about you. And that sounds crazy, but nobody cares about your story. People want to read something and get information that is going to speak to them somehow. Now, that doesn't mean you don't write a book about your story, but what I'm saying is it helps when your story leads to a larger conversation, and that is what your book is about. Okay? If you just write, hey, my name is Malcolm, this is my life, who other than, maybe my mom wants to read that book, and she probably doesn't want to read the book because she lived it. Like, she's my mom. You get what I'm saying? So you want to write for somebody else. You want to write with the reader in mind. Think about who you're writing for and create a book that way. The first time, because this book right here was like my 5th attempt. And the first time I almost made that mistake. I was writing kind of, about me and things like that. And then I had to really sit there and think, and I got like really far way through, and I had to think, like, who's going to read this book? Like, who would want to read this book? Why would they want to read this book? And that's why I made it, around an overarching topic that I believed in, and got other people. I interviewed other people and crafted stories and weaved my own personal story within those stories. And the 11 people that I interviewed for my book, I have some kind of personal connection with them somehow. I even went to school with them. I played on the football team with them. I went to college with them, or my siblings. I had 2 of my brothers in the book as well. So write with the reader in mind. If you don't do that, you're going to work really hard for nobody to read the book, okay? So think about that. Another thing, people, what they don't do, and this is the mistake that I made, and I think this is one of the larger mistakes all creatives make, whether you're an artist, an author, a musician, whatever, you stop promoting after the launch. Okay, so that's a huge mistake. You work really hard to create this book. You work really hard to create this project. Then you promote it, on the way. It's about to come out, maybe a couple weeks and stuff before that. And then after it's out, you promote it for a little while, and then that's it. And then you kind of wonder, like, what happened. There are huge authors who've put out books, and their books that came and hit a bestsellers list years after the fact because it was a slow burn, but they never stopped promoting their work. Again, it was a mistake that I made when I put this book out. This book came out January 2020. March of 2020, what happened? Everybody was locked in, it's pandemic and things like that. So I kind of lost focus on my own work, something that I worked really hard on. And it felt really weird trying to re-promote a book that came out years ago, but don't. You have to be shameless in your promotion, especially if it's something that you're passionate about, especially if it's something you worked hard on. Your work, you deserve that. Okay, you deserve to have people read your work, have people always see what you have, contributed and put out to the world. So definitely never stop promoting your work. A lot of self-published authors, what they do is they write their book expecting people to just find them. Okay, you have to become findable. So that means you have to create content that, complements your book, right? So if it's about a certain topic that, you talked about in your book, that it could be about domestic violence or something, whatever it is, divorce, it could be about whatever it is, create content surrounding that topic so people can consistently find you. Okay, I don't care if how long your book has been up on Amazon. If nobody knows about it, nobody will buy it. So you might find 1 or 2 people who might stumble upon that, but other than that, your book will go largely unnoticed and unheard of. So you have to always be findable and never expect people to just kind of stumble upon your book. It won't happen. Okay. So here's another one that is really important that I think a lot of people kind of overlook and skip, is the importance of writing a good book description. Right now, a compelling, grabbing book description is crucial for online sales, right? So writing a captivating and concise book blurb, like, this part that goes in the back of the book, is really good to converting people who wouldn't necessarily be a reader to purchase your book. Okay. This is a practice that I recommend to authors, is to write about their book in 1 sentence, 1 paragraph, and 1 page. If you can't do it within these 3 steps, you have to kind of go back and work through your idea again. Because if you can't think about what your book is going to say, about what your book is about in a sentence, then you don't really have a good idea of what you're even writing, right? In a paragraph, same thing. And then in the page, then you're able to fully flesh out what that book is about, what message you're trying to convey, and what ideas you're trying to get across. So definitely write a good book description, because that helps with online sales. It helps people, convert cold readers into people who are warm buyers or hot buyers. You get what I'm saying? Okay, so in this last one, and I think it's super important, it's one of the reasons why a lot of self-published authors never sell past 100 copies. And I think that's a shame, right? You didn't work really hard to only sell 100 copies. You didn't work really hard, stayed up all those nights, those early mornings, and putting a lot of that brain power just to only reach 100 people. And most of those people are probably friends and family, you get what I'm saying? Again, who would just, buy a book to support, but never actually pick it up. They'll just put it down somewhere. You wrote this book so you can have an impact on people. And so this last one is not building an audience, right? If you don't build an audience of readers, if you don't build your email list, if you don't build these things, you're going to be starting at a deficit. You're going to be trying to run uphill, with your book in hand, waving people like, listen, read my book, it's really good. Okay, so you want to build an audience of readers beforehand. That could be guest blogging on other people's websites. That could be starting a podcast. That could be, just creating content on your social media and things like that, that attract people who are interested in your topic, okay? If you build an audience beforehand, you're going to have a way easier time when it comes to launching and pre-selling your book. And that helps with Amazon rankings, once your book is released and things like that as well. So if you have an email list, then you can promote directly to your email list. Those people are already people who have, quote unquote, opted in and bought in, even though email list is free, bought in to whatever it is you have to say. So now by the time you have something to sell, right, you can say, hey, this is this book that goes way into this topic. It goes way into these concepts. They're more likely to buy, and then you're not at a disadvantage. You have some momentum, some wind under your wings. So when you launch your book, when it's out, you have some actual traction, and you can sell way more copies. So that's it for this one, short one. I think if you do these things, if you avoid these mistakes, you'll be in a much better place, way better shape to sell your book. And like I said at the top of the show, if you have, a book that you're trying to write and you need to know how to do it, I have a free course. It's on blackfamilybiz.com. All you need is an email. It goes into a lot of these different topics, and it goes way deeper into the idea, way into the concepts of selling, how to sell your book. And then again, along with that course, you have courses on podcasting, YouTube, all things that help you sell your book going forward as well. So that's it. My name is Malcolm. This has been the Black Family Biz Show. Thank you for joining me. I hope you got a lot out of this, and I will see you next week. Peace.